9th of June, Rabbi Moore, Parsha, Hashavua with Rashi, Beha'aloscha.
Okay.
Hello, Rabbi. How are you?
Baruch Hashem. Just 1 second. Okay. Very good.
I can hear you and I can see you.
So over here. We are up to, I think I'd like to skip a little bit. Where did we get up to? I want to do a little bit about Pesach Sheni, which is the next section.
Sounds good.
What's the chapter here? Pesach Sheni.
Yeah. By the way, it was an absolute amazing, miraculous physical feat that Aaron waved each of the Levim all on one day. And there were 22,000 of them. And he waved them. So just take 12 hours, 12 daylight hours, makes 12 times 60, makes 12 times 6 is 72, 720 minutes. Okay, we've got 22,000 Levium being waved in 720 minutes. It's just over 30 wavings, 30 Levium per minute, which means that each one had about 2 seconds, less than 2 seconds. You had to do a wave of each thing non-stop for 12 hours, which is a pretty amazing physical feat.
What does waving involve?
Up, down, and in 4 directions.
So it's like waving a lulav?
Yeah. And we're talking about, I don't know what the average weight of a Levi is. I've got Aaron was 83 years old at the time. He had to do that.
And why do we limit it to 12 hours?
Yeah, I'm just assuming that was the length of the day at the time. We're talking about at the beginning of Nisan. Times 60.
It has to be daytime, it can't be in nighttime?
One second. Yeah. How do I know it was all on that same day as well? It means it could be spread out of a number of days. I don't know. Doesn't actually say a time limit. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting point. Okay, I'd like to just go skip to Shlishi, chapter Tes, chapter 9.
Yeah.
Okay, Mayor,
Yes.
can we hear you? I want to skip to Shlishi just for today to get a little bit of a, actually this week's Parsha has a lot of diverse, different subjects.
Uh-huh.
Let's go. Okay, Mayor, you want to go?
Okay, it says Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe v'midbar Sinai b'shana hasheni latzetam me'eretz Mitzrayim b'chodesh harishon lemor. Okay, so Hashem spoke to Moshe in the Sinai desert. Okay. It was the second year from the, it's funny, they say Litzeitam. I think they'd say Meitzeitam, but okay. From the Exodus, from leaving Egypt, the Exodus leaving Egypt, okay. The land of Egypt, in the first month, saying, okay. It's the beginning of the second year. Okay, Rashi, B'chodesh Harishon, in the first month, Parsha Sheberosh HaSefer.
Means the section which is mentioned at the beginning of Sefer Shmois, Sefer Bamidbar, this book, right? Sheberosh HaSefer, Lo Nemra Ad Iyar, wasn't said till. It was only said at the beginning of Iyar. And yet this one, it says Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to them in the second year and the first month, saying.
Right. Oh, okay. So it's a contradiction. Okay.
Right. Lamadto shein seder muktam u'meucha b'Torah. There's no, should we say, chronological order in different sections. Okay? That's the most of the Maskana of the Gemara, that in the same section there is chronological order is kept, but in different sections there is no chronological order kept in between one set. You know, it's one section, like this section over here occurred before the section in mentioned at the beginning of the Sefer over here, beginning of Bamidbar.
Oh, okay.
That's actually hyperbole.
Because
it's not true that there's no sequencing. In general, they are in order, just that there's exceptions.
That is true, right? But I'm saying that the Torah doesn't feel obliged to keep to a chronological order with regard to different sections. That's basically what it means.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Vilama lo patach bezo. And why did this not begin, or why didn't this Parsha, I guess, begin with this verse?
Why didn't Sefer Bamidbar begin with this?
Okay.
So by the way, you see from here that where all other things considered, we do try to keep to a chronological order.
Right.
What's the question here? Why didn't it start with it? Because who cares?
Okay.
Right? The answer is that there is some rhyme and reason why the order is changed. Okay.
It says Mibnei shehu nituntan
Genusan shel Yisrael.
Because get
Genutan.
Oh, I'm not sure what that is.
It's the telling the disgrace
of
the Jewish people.
Oh. Okay. I see. Okay, let's see. Shekol Arba'im Shana Shayu Yisrael Bamidbar. That all 40 years Israel was in the desert. Lo Hikriv Ela Pesach Zeh Bilvad. Oh, so
They
that
only
means,
offered up. This is the only time they offered the Korban Pesach.
right. And the rest of the time they didn't.
Right. Now it's
Oh.
interesting that they mentioned that it's called the denigration, the disgrace of the Jewish people, that they didn't. Sounds like they couldn't have been. They could have done it, but they weren't. They didn't bother doing it. But in actual fact, Namaisa, they were not allowed to.
So why is it a denigration then?
Yeah, why did they get punished if
Exactly.
they weren't allowed to?
Right. So Tosfos asked this question. Tosfos and Kedushin asked this question.
Oh, okay.
Where is it? He says an interesting thing. You go here, the quotes of Rashi. Rashi in Shmoy says, because the Pasuk says over there in Parshas Boy, it says that when you come to the land, I'll quote you here 1 second. Where is it? Just 1 second. Yeah. In other words, the actual offering the Korban Pesach, besides this one time when they were told specifically to bring the Korban Pesach,
Excuse me for a minute.
the other one here, the Kosh Baruch told Moshe, tell the people to bring the Korban Pesach, but all the other years in the desert, they weren't obliged to. Why? Because it says over here in Parshas Boy, where is it? Where's the pasuk over here? Hold on 1 second. 25 here. Bahaya. 1 second. Sorry, I lost it. The Turks, the Kosh Baruch Hu told Moshe that when they were in Egypt to offer the Korban Pesach, Ushmarte mesadov hazeh l'chol chol minecha ad olam. Bahaya ki savoyu el haaretz asher yiten Hashem lochem kasher diber ushmarte mesavoy ga'azois. When you come to the land, right, that's when you'll be obliged to bring the Korban Pesach. But when they were in the desert, there was no obligation for them to bring the Korban Pesach, except this one time when the Torah told them, Kosh Baruch Hu told them specifically, bring the Korban Pesach. So why? So if that's the case, why is it to their denigration? So who did I quote over here? Tosfos. Yes, so Tosfos in Kedushin. So Tosfos answers the thing. Who was responsible for the fact that they stayed 40 years in the desert?
Mm-hmm.
The Jews, the Jewish people themselves. Had they not sinned with the golden calf and afterwards with the spies, they would have gone directly into Eretz Yisrael. So they wouldn't have missed out on bringing the Korban Pesach. But because they sinned with the golden calf and then afterwards sinned with the spies, so they were delayed coming into the land, and therefore they lost out on bringing Korban Pesach. So that's what Rashi means. In other words, it's to the denigration of the Jewish people, not the fact that the entire 40 years they didn't have to bring the Korban Pesach because they were not obliged to. Right? But they should have been in a situation that they were already in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore they were already obliged. But because they sinned, that's why they were delayed coming to Eretz Yisrael for another, not quite 40 years, but another 38 years. So that's the taina on the Jewish people. Taina means that they should have behaved in a way that they would have gone into Eretz Yisrael immediately, rather than being delayed and staying in the desert another 38 years.
Wow.
So that's the denigration of the Klal Yisrael.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Very good.
very good. Okay, even though the Lashon of Rashi doesn't seem to sound like that, it says it should have brought otherwise. The Maisa, there's a, he brings it here in the Sifsei Chachamim. Yeah, that's what he says over here. Shehem Gor Moses Ta'atzim B'Cheto, Shelulei HaChet HaYuchol Mikones La'aretz B'Shlosh Yomim. Within 3 days they could have gone into the land. But because they sinned, they had to stay. Now, by the way, they could have brought it in the desert, but Chazal say their children, they couldn't circumcise their children. And because they couldn't circumcise their children, therefore, any person who had an uncircumcised child couldn't bring the Korban Pesach. It ended up that they didn't bring the Korban Pesach. Okay?
This is troubling though, because being in the wilderness for 40 years or 38 years was absolutely necessary. And it was a wonderful thing. It was the greatest yeshiva of all times.
I understand, but had they not sinned, but obviously it was a punishment, because had they not sinned, they would have gone straight into Eretz Yisrael, and obviously Kodesh Baruch Hu would have taken care of them.
But how would they have learned all the Torah that they learned for 40 years?
Let me ask you. There were 2 sets of tablets. Right? Had it better that there been just 1 set or 2 sets?
I'm sorry, would it be better if there was 1 set or 2 sets?
Yeah, what was better situation?
1 set.
Right. So it says that when Moshe Rabbeinu, had he not broken the first set and had to redo the second set, which was man-made as opposed to the first set, Klal Yisrael would have been a situation that would have never forgotten the word of Torah.
Wow.
So the requirement of how much they needed to effort to learn would have been much less. So therefore, they wouldn't have needed the time, the 38 years to stay in the desert to be able to make sure to absorb the Torah. It was like, everybody would have a photographic memory. They just look at each pasuk, it's there, and they would never have forgotten the word of Torah.
So you're
Okay.
going to learn the whole Torah in a couple of weeks?
Yeah. I
That's-
mean, somebody has a photographic memory and he absolutely loses nothing. So he can just read as quick as he can read. That's how much he can contain, he retain in his memory.
That's shot.
That should be explained. But once he has it in afterwards, they would have taught it to Moshe Rabbeinu, would have continued to teach it to them and explain everything. But the actual retention of all the information was there. Maybe also they would have been given the Siyata Dishmaya to understand everything without effort. I'm not sure, I don't know, it's a good point.
But the whole point of learning Torah is you're supposed to put effort. You're supposed to be a Meilim B'Torah.
Yeah, but that din of Amelim B'Torah was only as a result of the breakage of the first luchos. Had there not been the first luchos broken, the whole situation would have been different, and there would have been no effort required in learning and retaining the knowledge of the Torah.
But even Moshe Rabbeinu needed effort.
At what stage?
At every stage.
Before 1 second.
There are breaks in the written Torah to show
Right, you're correct. You need to say that that was originally, that's for sure, originally from Sinai.
Let Moshe take
Okay, but if Moshe Rabbeinu understood, first of all, he learned everything in 40 days and 40 nights. Okay, so the Jewish people could have also done that.
but that's more than 2 weeks.
Well, 1 second. Had they not sinned with the Chet Egel, when would it have gone into the land? Within 3 days, you mean? So how could they have learned everything? I don't know. Good point. If Moshe Rabbeinu needed 40 days, the Jewish people for sure would have needed at least 40 days. So therefore, there should have been another 40 days till they went into the land.
At
I
least.
don't know. So it's possible, it could be they could have gone into the land even without fully understanding the Torah, with just having the knowledge. I don't know. A good point, I don't know. Okay, Pasuk base.
Pasuk base. Vayasu v'nei
This is a commandment.
V'yasu v'nei Yisrael es ha-pasach
As a Pasach, yeah, b'moado.
Pasach b'moado. Okay, so the children of Yisrael shall make a Pesach offering. B'moado means at its appointed time.
Yeah, right.
Moad meaning.
Moado means at the appointed time. Rashi says over here,
It's not the same word as moed, I guess, huh?
it is. The moed means a time,
Oh,
the appointed time.
I see, and it's time. Okay, it's appointed time. All right, so Rashi says, b'moado, af b'Shabbat, even on Shabbos.
Right?
And then in parentheses, I have b'moado, af b'tum'ah, even when they were impure.
Right. Okay. Now, so actually there's 2 separate words we're referring to. Pasuk base at the last word, which is what Rashi starts off, is even on Shabbos. The Moed, in other words, Torah makes a special issue of saying that it's got to be on time. You have to offer the Pesach, Korban Pesach, in its right time. So the first one tells you even on Shabbos, and the second one in the next pasuk, Umayadoi, tells you even betuma. Now, which means that this here from Chazal learn out the concept of tuma hutra betzibur, which means the Korban Pesach, even if most of the Jewish people were Tomei, and in the situation, even if all the priests, all the Kohanim are Tomei, and therefore there's nobody who can offer the Korban Pesach, do the service of the Korban Pesach, who is Tor, right? We learn out from here, then it can be brought, the Korban Pesach can be brought even in a state when either the Jewish people are in a state or the Kohanim in a state of Tumah. Hutra betzibur. So in this respect, the Korban Pesach is considered a public offering, and even though each individual brought it, but each individual of the entire congregation, of the entire community, was obligated to offer this korban. Therefore, in that respect, the Korban Pesach is considered a public offering. Okay, and we're going to see, because in the continuation of the Parsha, it's going to mention that an individual who was Tomei at the time that they brought the Korban Pesach, i.e. on the 14th of Nisan, on Erev Pesach, then he doesn't bring it B'tumah, but he gets pushed off, and he has a second opportunity to bring the Korban Pesach on Pesach Sheni. Okay, then we're going to see about this. Okay. Pasuk Gimel.
Okay. B'arba'a asa yom b'chodesh hazeh bein ha'arbayim ta'asu oto b'moado k'chol chukotav u'chol mishpatav ta'asu oto. Okay, so let's see. So what, on the 14th day in this month, Ben Harbayim, is that sunset?
No.
Ben
Bein Arbaim literally means between the evenings.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Which Chazal understand that the sun has 2 evenings, which means the 2 points in the day when the sun makes a change in direction. Should we call it that way? Not really a change in direction, it means a major change in its movement.
Mhm.
Okay?
Okay.
One is at midday. At midday, it starts moving west, starts towards setting. And the second major point is when it actually drops below the horizon, which is actually the sunset. Okay, Bein Arbaim is in between those 2 times,
Oh,
which really means in the afternoon.
so it's in the afternoon, yeah.
Right? So to all intents and purposes, it means in the afternoon. There's actually a machlokes whether midoraisa means everybody agrees that the afternoon, the Maisa begins half an hour after the pinnacle where the sun reaches its pinnacle, which is in the middle of the day. The earliest time when one can bring a Korban Pesach is half an hour after midday. However, there's a difference of opinion whether that din is din d'oraisa or din drabbanan. But to one opinion, that is only then, half an hour after the midday, is when the sun starts to set towards move west. Whereas for that hour of the middle of the day, the sun is up above and is not kibiyochel, as far as we're concerned, is not moving west yet. It's not setting yet, or heading towards setting. That's according to one opinion, and therefore the half hour is a deraisa. And according to the second opinion, already technically after midday, already the sun is moving towards the west. However, since it's hard for us to discern that it's already setting, therefore Chazal obligate us to wait half an hour to make sure that it's clearly visible to see that the sun is already moving west towards setting. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rashi.
Yeah.
Kichol chukotav, according to all the decrees. Okay. Elu mitzvot shebegufo. Oh, these are commandments that concern the body?
Yeah, no, yeah, body, which means the actual body of the korban.
Oh, of the korban.
Means
Okay.
what state the korban has to be in, meaning what conditions do we require for the actual korban itself to have, what conditions does it have to have?
So that's what he's
That's what
saying.
Rashi goes on to say.
Set tamim.
Basically four conditions. Set
Tamim zachar ben
shana.
shana. Okay, so it has to be a lamb, I guess. Has to be perfect. Must be a male.
Zocha has to be a male.
And within a year. It has to be less than a year old. Wow. Okay. And then it says, Uvechol mishpatav, according to its law, all of the laws. Okay. Elu mitzvot she'al gufo. So these, let's see, are the commandments, again, that are on the its body. I guess the Pesach sacrifice. Okay. Mimakom acher, from another place.
which means,
Kigon-
I'll call it extraneous to the actual animal itself, but the other
Ah.
laws which apply will apply, which apply, but not extraneous to the actual carbon, but they apply otherwise as well. Well, we can see there's two different readings here in the Rashi. I'm curious to know which one you have.
Okay.
Kigon,
Well, I have Kigon, Shivat Yamim, La Matzah, Ula the or
Chametz.
Chametz.
Okay. Now, so what Rashi is saying is as follows. There's a whole discussion on Rashi's terminology, right?
Mhm.
Because I have another reading which will be quoted over here. It's as follows: mitzvah shebegufo, the mitzvahs which are applicable to the actual body of the animal of the carbon, which is, as we mentioned before, says somim zocha ben shana, has to be a sheep, perfect without blemish, zocha male, and ben shana within its first year. She'al gufo, mitzvahs which are pertinent to its guf, but not actually on the din, which is describing the actual body of the carbon itself, but these are dinim which are applicable to the carbon, i.e., and this is what Rashi mentions, tzli eish, how is the carbon pesach prepared to eat? Roasted in fire.
Mhm.
Al karov va'al kirboy, with its feet and with its innards. Okay, which was quoted, we will see from quoted later on, which means that the carbon pesach had a din when it was roasted, the feet were cut off and the feet were placed together, and the innards were taken out, were removed from inside the animal, from inside the sheep, and they were placed on the outside. So everything that had, the fact that they had to be roasted in fire, and the feet and the innards of the sheep placed outside, together with the actual body of the sheep, and roasted all together that way, those were dinim which apply to the carbon pesach. Those are also applicable. That's kachol mishpatov. And then there's a third level, which basically laws which generally apply to the festival of Pesach, and also to the extent of the carbon, is there's a law that since one's not allowed to eat chometz in midoraisa from midday of Erev Pesach. Already from then, one's forbidden to midoraisa to eat chometz. And part of the reason is because one is not allowed to bring a carbon Pesach, right, when there is chometz around. Because I learned out from there that from the time one can offer the carbon pesach, it's forbidden to have chometz. Al chometz dam zivchi. Okay, so therefore, this is also technically connected with the carbon pesach, but it's just connected with it. It doesn't. It's not a law that actually applies to the animal. It's extraneous to the actual animal itself, but it's a law which is applicable, that when one shechs the carbon pesach, one's forbidden to have chometz in one's possession. So that third category was also applicable over here. This is talking about with this pasuk Gimel, right? It was not talking about Pesach Sheni yet. We're talking about the bringing of the carbon pesach on Erev Pesach. So therefore, the Kodesh Baruch Hu told Moshe, when the Jewish people bring it, has to be brought kechol chukosav kechol mishpatav tasuosav, meaning all those laws which are the Torah stipulated for bringing a carbon pesach, whether regard to the actual animal itself, and all the other pertinent laws, even those which are technically extraneous to the animal itself, all these apply now when you bring your carbon pesach here in the desert. Okay?
Very good.
Very good. We'll stop here. And Bez Hashem, everybody, I wish everybody a good Shabbos.
And you should have a good Shabbos too,
Shalom,
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Be well. Kol tov.
Okay. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Meir. Shabbat
Yechiel.
shalom.
Shabbos. Shabbos Yechiel.
Shabbos. Yechiel.